Hello friends, this is Russian Tortoise here with another tortoise enclosure video. This is the third tortoise enclosure video. If you're interested in checking out the first two, which are about glass enclosures for tortoises and tortoise tables, check out the links. I'm gonna have them in the description and you can see which enclosure works best for yourself. In this video we're going to be talking about plastic bins for tortoises to use as an enclosure. Like always, there are many drawbacks and many benefits to using plastic bins, same as with the glass terrariums and the tortoise tables. So we're going to get started on the cons, and then we're going to get to the pros, and in the end I'm going to summarize it all. So let's get started. Like always, let's get started with the cons. The first con is that plastic bins are not very appealing, even more so than the home-built tortoise tables we discussed last week. If you're a snake keeper, you're most likely already used to the prospect of keeping your pets in a fairly lame bin, but this is a foreign concept for some of us. From my experience, when I kept my box turtle Noelle in a large Rubbermaid tub, I really did not like the look of the tub from the beginning. While I liked the way I could decorate the inside of the enclosure because there was a lot of space, the fact that it did not fit neatly into the corner of my room was pretty obvious every time I looked at it. This is not a problem with glass enclosures, which usually come in a rectangular shape, which fits nicely into most rooms, or wooden tortoise tables, which you can make any shape you want. Most large tubs are also made out of an opaque plastic so that you can't see your pet on the inside. This is the same issue you have with tortoise tables, but with tortoise tables, at least you can decide on how high you want to make the walls of the enclosure and where you want to cut a hole into the walls for a window. While cutting holes into the walls for a window is also possible with tubs, they are made out of a very flimsy material, meaning that any hole you cut into them results in an even less stable enclosure. Which brings me to the next point, which is that plastic tubs are flimsy. While this results in a lightweight enclosure, it also means that the walls are not as strong. This is not an issue for small species such as Russian tortoises, Greek tortoises, anything of that size. But if you're dealing with a larger species that's stronger, like sulcatas, they can more easily escape this enclosure. Plastic tubs, just like glass terrariums, also do not hold heat very well. This is really something wooden enclosures excel at, as their walls can be built as thick as you want. And if your room gets cold at night and you're dealing with a tropical species, this means you will need more heating elements in your plastic bin than if you're dealing with a wooden enclosure. It's also difficult to attach heat lamps to plastic tubs via clips. These clips are designed for glass terrariums which have a straight edge. Most plastic tubs have a sort of lip all the way around the rim, making these clips less secure. This results in the need to build a custom lid if you want to be extra safe, on which you can place the lamp instead. Another con is that combining tubs to build larger enclosures takes some time and effort. I have a video where I show you how to build an outside enclosure out of Rubbermaid tubs, and the process is essentially the same for an indoor enclosure. Connecting the 3 tubs I used via tunnels took a lot of time compared to the rest of the enclosure. While this is not a major drawback for those of you who feel comfortable cutting into their newly bought tubs and using some basic tools, it is a con for those without the necessary tools, or for those who do not feel comfortable doing so. I will post a link in the description to the enclosure build video that I have, and you can see for yourself. So that's all the cons. As always, I like to list a lot of cons so that you know as much as possible before you get into selecting your enclosure. And now let's get into the pros. The first pro, which I've already alluded to, is that plastic tubs are very light. This makes them easy to transport and store, and makes setting up the enclosure much easier too. The tubs can be moved to any place in the home without much effort, which means you won't need help of a friend or parent, so you're saving on beer or apple juice money. Another pro is that these enclosures are relatively cheap. A large Rubbermaid toes goes for around $25 Canadian at Walmart, and an acceptable enclosure for your Russian tortoise can be built by connecting 3 of these tubs. This means that together with the wood needed to connect these tubs, you're spending about $100. If you need to build a table, of course, you're spending more if you need to build a table to put the tub on, but this might still be the right choice for you. Opposed to wooden enclosures, plastic tubs are just as easy to clean as glass enclosures. This means that if you ever have to deal with an outbreak of mites or any other parasite, it's much easier to keep your enclosure nice and clean. Opposed to glass enclosures, plastic tubs can also be combined to make very large enclosures for your tortoise. Cutting into plastic is a lot easier than cutting into glass and does not require extremely special tools. If you have an X-Acto knife, a soldering iron, or a drill, you can very easily cut holes into the tubs where you can then attach passageways for your tortoise. Again, like I said before, this requires some skill, but everybody who has access to basic tools and is willing to look at some online instructions can manage to do this. So, again, we seem to have more cons than pros. However, plastic tubs became my favorite way to make outside enclosures this summer. This is because plastic tubs, unlike wood, do not rot, and we moved to a house that didn't have a backyard. If you have a backyard, of course, you're going to make your outside enclosure out of wood. You're going to make a surrounding wall out of wood or stone, and then you have a nice large area for your tortoise to roam. But if you have a porch like we do at my parents' house, you can't do that because we don't have any grass. And the tub has allowed me to make an outside enclosure that does not decompose, that was easy to build, and once the summer is over, it's really easy to move back into the basement. Alright, so that was my opinion on using plastic tubs for tortoise enclosures. I hope you realize by the end that plastic tubs are a pretty good option for your tortoise as long as you don't really care what they look like, because they look awful enclosure wise. But for outside enclosures, they're awesome. This is gonna be my last tortoise enclosure video for a while. Reason being that I'm flying back to not to Germany. I'm in Germany right now. Flying back to Canada on the 23rd of August, which is in a couple of days. So that means I'm going to be going back to Canada, and then I need to get settled again. I need to, clean all my pet enclosures because I bet my parents didn't do that. I need to, get school stuff sorted out, and then I need to buy a computer, and then I can edit videos again. I'm still going to upload videos, don't worry about that, but none of this style for a little bit. So, with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please click like, leave a comment if you have any questions, and subscribe to see more in the future. And with that, I will see you guys next time.